Judd Tully, the editor-at-large of Art+Auction magazine. We're in Maastricht in the Netherlands at the TEFAF, the European Fine Art Fair. Freestanding behind me is a 26-foot-high Alexander Calder work titled Janie Waney. I understand it's from a U.S. private collection. Although it's not identified as such, it is available for around $20 million. In our visit here, we're going to see a number of galleries ranging in art from the middle 20th century going way back to the old masters. We're with Jean-Luc Baroni from the London Gallery of the same name, and we're standing in front of a rather remarkable old master painting. It's St. Paul the Hermit.
Well, the artist is French, Claude Vignon. He was born in a town outside Paris. He traveled early in the late 1610s, to Italy, to Rome in particular, where of course he was, like anybody else, influenced by the work of Caravaggio. That's where he gets the very style of this picture. This is a little later though, because it's actually signed and dated 1632. In the way it's painted, it shows the influence of artists in Venice and Genoa, and particularly Strozzi and Domenico Fetti. The picture is quite interesting because the subject is not that common. It's St. Paul the Hermit. Every day he fed himself because, thanks to a raven who came and brought him half a loaf of bread. If you don't look at the raven, or you don't immediately know the raven, you think it's Saint Jerome.
So you have quite a bit of information and context for this painting, and it has great history.
Yes, it does. I mean, the only history we don't have is the provenance, which unfortunately often happens. All we know is they turned up in the 70s, so quite recently, and went to a collection, then to another, and then we bought it.
Can I ask you, what are you asking in terms of the price of the painting?
We're asking 185,000 euros.
We're here with Howard Shaw of Hammer Galleries from New York, standing in front of this rather magnificent Monet painting. Howard, can you talk a bit about the painting and how Monet thought about it?
This was painted in 1893. After about 6 months where Monet did not paint at all, it was around the time where he married for the second time, and he wanted to reinvigorate himself. So he went outdoors, painted in the winter. He liked to do that like one of his idols, Courbet. And this is about a mile from Giverny, along the Seine. The Seine had frozen over. What's wonderful about this painting is this was a personal favorite of Monet's, and like many of the works that he considered personal favorites and never wanted to part with, he kept this in his studio, and we have fabulous archival photo showing Monet standing next to this very work, which typically hung over his desk where he did his correspondence and so forth. And he didn't finally sell it till 1924. The original invoice is reproduced in one of the Monet books, sold for 40 or 50,000 French francs in 1924, which was certainly a high price.
And what is the price of it today?
Today, the price is $11.5 million.
I'm here with Marco Voena of Robelant and Voena. Marco, tell me about this work by Bonalumi. It's an important work, isn't it?
I think it's one of the most important survive in that dimension. We're talking about 2.5 meters. And what is interesting is because this material that he used, he always experimented different materials in all, from the beginning, from the 1960, 1959. He can do this kind of shape, but to have this kind of light that change on the surface, because he's a master of the spatialism. He tried to change the surface of the painting, and there's something going outside the canvas, you know. That is what is different from Lucio Fontana, that is going through the canvas, you know, and with obviously a violent jest, slashes and holes. He tried to invent the space outside the canvas. That is very important of Bonalumi.
And tell me, Marco, in terms of your stand here, you are mixing Italian works from the 1960s with old master paintings.
It reflects our specialization from the last, I think, 10 years. We like to mix this kind of culture. In my opinion, in the history of art, there are different languages but no borders. So I like to see the difference between the centuries to show to the people that the things talks together.
I'm with Paul Kasman from New York, and Paul, this is your first TEFAF exhibition. Tell me about the stand and what you're showing.
Well, I have to say the stand's quite good in that it's very much a reflection of what I'm up to in New York at the moment. My next show at the gallery is Soutine, so we're seeing the exhibition will be more still lifes, but this is a fairly good representative landscape. And then right now I've got a show that's really dedicated to the life of Alexandre Jolas, who is an extraordinary dealer who really, I believe, introduced surrealism in a big way to America. So we have Lalanne in the show. Jules Zalitsky had his first show there. Andy Warhol had his first and last exhibitions with Jolas. I'm trying to make somewhat of an homage out of the booth.
And what brings you to Maastricht? It's a different kind of fair. It's a longer fair. It's 12 days. You've done a number of fairs all over the world. What's your interest here?
It's always been a fair that I visited, and every visit I'm fascinated on every level. And I learn a great deal visiting the other, old master or silver dealers. In New York, people are always commenting on my wide range of interests and, showing Soutine at the same time as Walton Ford. And so I thought this would be one of the fair in Europe that would be suitable somehow.